Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, and welcome to another episode of Fanalyses, Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm Retty4, this is Greyjoy91.
Hello.
And this is Antoine Bandelet.
Be water, my friends.
Antoine, explain what we're doing this episode.
So what we do when we wrap up a season of Avatar or anything that we do on this podcast is we talk about the entirety of the collection of what we just watched. But what we do for Avatar in particular is we do a top 10 for our episodes list, which will kind of navigate our discussion around the season itself. And then we'll round out. I forget if we do we do our bottom three last? Is that what we do?
Or do we do the bottom three first?
Yeah.
Bottom three first.
Because
I had a hard time.
Oh, we all did.
Yeah.
We all did for this one because I don't know about you guys, but for me, this is very much the three that I would watch the least, but still think are pretty good. It's just
I don't have a single episode in book 2 that I dislike. So this
actively dislike. Yeah.
Actively dislike. There are several that I do skip on occasion, and those are the ones I picked.
Yeah,
So
it's just a case of there were less amazing moments in these, so therefore it's not like I don't like that one. But yeah, only a good thing for the series.
So yeah, I don't have an exact a ranking for the bottom three.
Sure.
I just have the 3 episodes I have. And then mine will be the Cave of Two Lovers. And I think the reason for that mostly is because I'm not a super fan of Aang and Katara and their relationship. I'll just leave it at that, so I don't get too crazy.
That is also on my list.
It's also on my list as well. Yeah.
It's just not that impactful, is it? I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
It's just kind of an episode.
It's kind of just an episode, but I mean, it's not. Again, it's not bad or anything like that. It's just, it's just there for me. Then I also have the drill, which is just kind of dry, I guess, for me. Would be the best way of describing it. It's just something I don't like really necessarily revisit a lot.
It's a bit in between. You know, it's fun and there's great
action. Except for the final fight.
It's
just what I revisit. But everything else is not.
The drill is not. The drill is not in my list of bottoms, but likewise. It's also not on my top list. It's I think we spoke about sort of the writing being a bit kind of confused in that one. Just the whole idea that Azula is riding around in a giant drill is just kind of
it's just a very inconsequential episode really, in the grand scheme. It's not really necessary for viewing. But it's still fun
for sure.
Great moments. It's still fun. It's just when you're talking about Avatar, you have to really trim the hedges.
And then my last one is one that I just skip or end up skipping often, and not necessarily because it's a bad episode, but I just don't necessarily like revisiting it all that much, and that's Appa's Lost Days. While it has stuff like you see Azula and the Kyoshi Warriors with one of my favorite fight scenes between the Kyoshi Warriors and Azula. Other than that, I don't really care so much for Appa's journey or him being at the circus or going through his hardships and stuff like that. I mean, it's cool. It's kind of like a recap episode, really, like a mid-season recap episode where it's like, oh guys, we didn't really have time to do anything else. Let's see, let's do best hits that we had in the first 10 episodes. So yeah, I didn't.
It's an interesting.
It sounds harsh because it's the only time Appa ever gets any real time to shine.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure it's the set opinion that most people will hold, that it's it wasn't the best episode for them. Great moments, but
I think if you're a real animal lover, or if you just love Appa, maybe I could see it being some people's favorite, but it's nowhere near mine. But at the same time, I find it an interesting departure. I think it's kind of a cool episode, but it's not a favorite of mine. I agree.
Not on my list though. It's not on my bottom list for that one. That was just not.
It didn't make my bottom either. That was your 3 then. So you did Cave of Two Lovers, Appa's Lost Days, and what was the other one that you said?
The Drill.
The Drill. Mine, I'm right there with you with Cave of Two Lovers, and for some of the same reasons, because it's just not my favorite ship. But at the same time, it just didn't do that much. I think it was interesting how it kind of talked about the history of earthbending, but it's just it is one that I don't feel the need to revisit it that often. So that's on my list. Is it on your list as well, Callum?
It is, yes. It's not on the third. Okay. It's not third on the list
though. No, yeah. I'm reading these backwards. That's on my bottom. Yeah, there's no particular order.
Yeah.
But I guess that is. I don't know. I'm conflicted on this one. My other one, the next one is Return to El Mashu, which I don't think is bad.
Oh, I don't even have that. Oh, yeah, that's in my in between, neither list.
Yeah, it's on my bottom list as well, though, Matt. We're sharing that.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
okay,
that's
cool.
my third.
And that one I think was down to basically my disagreement with Boomy on how to be
a leader. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's mostly what it is, because it's not a bad episode at all.
It's got a lot of great
the
moments in it.
introduction
It's really
of
fun.
Ty Lee and May.
Yeah,
it's got important stuff going on, but it's just not one of my favorites.
And we spoke for so long about that one as well.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, no, I like the episode. Just it wasn't liked enough. Something had to be on this bottom 3 list for me. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then for me, I guess I ordered these, but not really. They're all kind of the same area for me. But the swamp is on my list.
The swamp is my
I
other one
skip
as well.
that one pretty routinely.
That's
just because I don't. It's interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on, but I just don't feel the need to rewatch it that often. I often skip it.
For me, it's the worst episode in the season. And again, not because it's anyway bad. It's just, to me, there was less enjoyable and stuff about it. Because basically, we're making these lists on what we enjoy. So whether or not we think it's better is an independent point. It's how much you enjoy rewatching the episodes in just on emotional level. And that for me was just aside from the fact it's a swamp, very dry. There wasn't as much humor, there wasn't as much tension as some of the other episodes that they had. That was why Kevin Lovers was only second worst for me, because I found it quite funny at points, so it was kind of higher up than it could have been.
So is that your 3 done then? Did you have the same as me?
Yep, I had the same as you. Yeah, Return to Mashu, Kevin Lovers, and the swamp.
All right, so that was the bottom, which wasn't that bad, which says a lot about how good book 2 is.
Yeah, but it's much more interesting to discuss the top 10. Yes, starting with the worst of the 10, worst quote unquote. Do you want to go first again, Antoine?
My 10th spot was for Avatar Day. And
wow.
Why? Was that yours?
No, it's not. It's just I didn't really expect that to be on our tops because it's a silly episode. I like it, but it's just kind of a silly episode.
It's a fun one, isn't it?
That's because there wasn't other ones I really like. Looking at my list, I didn't have other stuff to put on there. That really was just kind of like I would have want to watch that one because I'm okay with that one.
Likewise, yeah.
Like it's a fun one to watch, especially because you get the throwback to Kyoshi and all that.
Yeah,
that's why I think it's kind of funny. Like even like the justice system that they have there, I think was like really like kind of funny. And then
it was
you have the one the guard who's like gotta be boiled in oil. And I'm like it's fun. It's fun shit. There's fun shit in that.
It is just a really fun episode. Yeah, it's just the fact that it's not as consequential as the others. That's why it got lowered down for me. Because
it's a filler episode.
Yeah, because again, it's just purely because there are other episodes I would rather watch. It's not in any way a detriment to itself. So it was in the in between on my end, but it nearly got in purely on the back of it being Kyoshi related because I love Avatar Kyoshi.
Yeah, that's a great moment too. Like I when I do rewatch it, it's pretty much to rewatch that sequence. Yeah. Great. My number 10 was City of Walls and Secrets, which I remember saying in the episode I think it probably would crack my top 10, but it only just did barely. And mainly it's because I like the buildup of Longfang as a serious, even though it doesn't really go that far, as a serious threat in the Earth Kingdom capital. I also love the fight between Zuko and Jet. I think it's one of the better points in the series for me as far as animation, specifically with regard to combat sequence. And I just like the whole scenario of Ba Sing Se being like this really not good place, and I just like that. It's a great episode for me.
Ba Sing Se. Yeah, no, I agree. My favorite thing about that again is the long fence stuff, even though it doesn't go anywhere. But the episode's fight is top tier. Probably my favorite sword fight actually in the entire show. I mean, I know there aren't that many, and we've said that others are great too, but that's probably the single best example of it in my opinion. Certainly in terms of the range of what's being shown. It was very cool.
I kind of wish we got to see like Piandao go up against another swordmaster.
Yeah, that'd have been so cool. That'd have been so cool. Yeah, that'd have been amazing. We missed out on that.
And that one's in my no man's land. That's in my in between.
Yeah. I expected. I it almost made mine. I wasn't sure, but it's like when I was just thinking about it, I thought I think it's good enough to be here. Yeah. But it was a nail biter for me.
It's my no man's land as well. Somewhere near the top though. It's a fun one. My number 10 is The Guru. Which I very much enjoy for the whole spiritual exploration, I guess, of the Avatar, and just generally how well they integrated the idea of chakras and spiritual states from real world without being too bog standard or cliche. They play with the idea, they kind of blend it a little bit into more specifically in the Avatar universe, and it's really fun. They do a lot with the character of the Guru, given how limited screen time he has. And it's a good setup for the following episodes. So yeah, I enjoy that one, but it just made it in a situation.
in a situation where I have mine higher and like we're already talking about it, should I say right now where mine is and then just have that
last time?
Okay. Oh, okay. In that case, so yeah, for me, Guru was number 4. And for the reasons that you actually said, I actually liked all of that stuff quite a bit, and I think that it just was more impactful for me than I guess it was for you because I like going back to that one a lot just for the chakra talk.
I'm sorry to say it's not on my list. It's
at all. It's No Man's.
I like it a lot, but I like most of the middle stuff. It's because it's mostly set up for me. Sokka's off with his dad, and that's kind of cool, but it's not really the point of anything. Same with Toph. She's like figuring out metal bending, which is cool. I just feel like it's like kind of one of those areas where once I've seen it, I think, okay, I remember what happened there.
Yeah.
And like, unless I'm doing a series wide rewatch, I never go, oh, I need to watch the Guru like right now. I think it's a perfectly valid choice. I considered it before others just beat it out.
Yeah, I liked it because I think I just like most things in Avatar that go beyond the physical plane. Not necessarily like the spirit realm, like actually actively going to the spirit realm, but just thinking about bending in the entire scope and not just oh yeah, we can shoot fire out of our hands kind of stuff. So I always appreciate that kind of stuff.
Just diving into the mentality behind it, and specifically with the Avatar, the whole balance idea, not in terms of the 4 elements, but in terms of the internal emotional kind of well-being, because this is the first time we get to see Aang exploring those different facets of himself that he hadn't even really thought about in terms of some of them, and it's a good setup for the Katara decision he has to make, even if it's very minor, as we said in the last episode discussion.
Right.
But yeah, only just got in there for me because there are so many great episodes.
Yes, I think we're on 9. Yeah, we're on 9 now.
Yeah.
So my number 9 is Tales of Ba Sing Se. That's the little odes we got, for all the other little characters. I particularly, I think, like in rewatching, really like the Toph one, and seeing her being a little bit more human, like after she got ridiculed by the girls after the makeup situation and saying she doesn't care about what people say about her because she can't see or whatever, but you kind of can tell she does kind of care a little bit. So I like that. I actually do really like the Sokka haiku. It was haiku, right?
Haiku. Yeah, that was what edged out for me in getting this position, because it was the fact that I remembered that. Oh yeah, I've forgotten how much I actually thought that was really good. And considering I don't like haikus in general, that's pretty impressive.
If anything, Zuko's episode, of course, I think was amazing.
It all just adds to the Iroh one. Iroh's the one everyone remembers.
And Iroh,
the fact that the others are so good as well, it elevates it for me.
Yeah, the one that wasn't like that and could have dropped it might have been the Aang and the Zoo stuff, because I didn't really care about that. But the other 4, there 4, no, or were there 6 others? No, 4, because Katara and Toph were together. Those really did it for me. So yeah, Tales of Ba Sing Se.
Not on my list. Got to be honest. I know it's at the same spot for you guys, but I kind of predicted that it would, because I like it.
You weren't sure whether or not it would be able to squeeze in because of how many other great options there are. I remember mentioning that in the episode.
The Sokka thing doesn't do as much for me as it does for you guys. I like the Katara and Toph one, and I like the Zuko. I like half the episode, basically. I like 3 of them. I like Katara and Toph, their shared one. I like Zuko's a lot, and I like Iroh's a lot, because obviously. And that's about it. Like, I think it's a good episode, great episode, just not one of my favorites. And it's always kind of been that way. I remember when it aired, I was like, man,
what's happening with the rest of the story?
This is what I waited a week for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's always kind of been that way. But I'm not bitter toward it. Yeah. So my number 9, because you guys had the same one. My number 9 is actually Avatar State, the first episode of this season.
See, that's like probably on the top of my No Man's list, the Avatar State. And how did it get off, actually, now I think about it?
I thought that was going to be way higher up for you guys. I thought it was going to be way higher up given the discussion we had on it. Yeah, that's surprising.
No, like when I'm looking at it next to the others on my list, there are things that I think are a little bit deeper in most of the other episodes, and maybe a little bit more, I don't know, just more mature, I guess, or push the envelope a little bit. But this one is so important in terms of things like lore. I love like the dynamic of the group in it. I love the understandable stupidity of the Earth General and the sort of like what he's trying to accomplish here, because it is a desperate war. And it establishes the rules, an important rule about like how the Avatar state functions and things like that. And it's cool. it also introduced Azula, and it's cool getting that sort of snapshot of like what the other avatars were like capable of when they were like going into the zone, like popping off 4 volcanoes, or Yang Chen's like little mini hurricane in the woods and things like that. So it's definitely an episode that I choose to rewatch more regularly than certain other ones. But yeah, really like the Avatar state.
It's higher up my list, but I'll let you know when we get there. For all the same reasons, basically. It's just a smorgasbord of amazing moments piled into one, and again, introduction of a great character.
And I also liked the comedy in it. I really liked
it. Was funny as well.
Like when they basically made mud by combining the elements and threw it at Aang. It was like, "Do you feel anything now?" And he sneezed. Just things like that.
It's great.
And a hell of an introduction for Azula. Like really good introduction for her.
So number 8, Antoine.
Number 8, I have the desert. I really like the kind of the conflict they had to go through, and also seeing Aang like actively angry for once, and not being the morally righteous monk that he usually is, and just having them go through that, and seeing Katara at her best, when they're at their worst, keeping all their shit together. I like that one a lot for emotional character reasons.
For those reasons, it's higher on my list, but it's number 5 for me, actually.
No, not on my list at all. Not on my list at all. This was an in-between one for me. I agree with all the points, of course. I think it's definitely that the strongest part of the episode is Aang and his reaction. But for me, the best part of that mini story for Aang came later on, in terms of my just initial enjoyment, not necessarily my objective analysis, obviously. It's just personal, emotional response to it. So, yeah. What was your number 5?
What number are we on? No,
sorry, you said number 5. Number 8. What was your number 8?
That's what it was for number 5.
Yeah.
Number 8 for me was Blind Bandit, which this is just a case of me enjoying what they build upon from this with other episodes. I think it's a great episode, but it's not higher on my list because I enjoy some of the later episodes more. I think it's a perfect introduction for Toph. I thought it has it's a really good showcase of earthbending in general. And I really just like how, even though it's an action heavy episode, it's very character based. And I just love so much like that, like sort of nighttime stroll she has with Aang,
walking on the bridge. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And just how there's
that's my number.
No hint of romance to it at all. Just totally.
Totally platonic. Totally.
Cool. Yeah.
It's the reason it placed higher on for me, just one notch, is it's the fact that it's such a character-driven episode, despite being so action-heavy. It's impressive in how they balance that, and particularly for that character, I think it perfectly fit her. It's a very memorable episode as well. It's one of those ones where you can remember pretty much everything that happens in it very easily because of how compact it is. So, and funny too. A lot of humor in that one, which is it was an all-round great episode.
The McDojo gets a laugh out of me every time in
the. Yeah, my number 8 was the library.
We are one off from each other. That's my number 7.
Yeah, it's great world building, great spirit. I mean, Wan Ji Tong is just a fantastic one. Creepy, interesting, really strong presence in terms of that kind of terror he can inspire, and just standing behind them or chasing them down the aisles. Really cool library, really funny. It's got everything I like about Avatar wrapped into one in that episode.
It's my number 6, and it's a nostalgic one for me because this is the point when my family got involved with the show as opposed to just me. Other people started watching it with me because it just happened that way. I'm not entirely sure why. And it's a super unique and memorable episode for me. Love it.
Very striking episode, just on the visuals alone, even if it didn't have some great content, which it does have as well because it's the setup episode for the invasion. It helps drive the plot forward again beyond just we need to train Aang. It's
and also goes beyond just book 2. It's not like they're setting up for something that's
exactly,
in this particular book. It's like, oh no, there's other stories beyond this.
It's very effective. Really good middle point for the entire season or series.
And the setting itself, and also a big thing that we didn't mention either was the Toph moment where she had to make the choice between Appa or saving everybody, or just the fact that she's dealing with sand bending and trying to hold up this entire ancient library.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I mean. It's also, spirits kind of show up way more often in Korra. We don't get that many spirit-related plots in the original one, so I really like it for that reason. Kind of a reminder of that other spot, or the other half of the plane of existence, I guess, whatever you want to call it. I really like that, and I like the just how much sense it makes. It's a strong episode for Sokka in that sense. That will have like coming up with this series spanning plan that that hopefully will go somewhere. It's a strong plot thread.
It's one of the moments that kind of cements him as the leader of the group. It's one of those episodes where you really get why he's kind of point man in terms of planning and just carrying them forward sometimes. Because this they're all taking vacations and he chooses one where they can actually be useful and ends up actually being useful for the rest of the season. Where would they be if they hadn't have gone here? So it's very strong for him, and just a fun one to just generally watch. A lot of unique things happening here that you don't get anywhere else in the books.
So what?
It's 7 now, but I had library, so it's whatever you guys 7.
Okay, mine's The Chase because library is number 6 for me.
Love that episode.
What?
I love that episode.
Oh, okay. It's an early snapshot of what Team Avatar is supposed to be. It's got great fight between the sort of a 3-way. It's got Iroh and Toph in the woods, drinking tea and being wise together and stuff. It's got just one of my favorite Azula moments where she's like, "You haven't figured out who I am." Covers eye. It's finally Avatar to regain my honor. It's okay.
You can laugh. It's funny.
Yeah, and it's set up for another one of my favorite episodes because Bitter Work really builds upon this, and also group conflict. It like Toph was brand new and she has a hard personality to deal with at the start, and just kind of really sort of testing those bonds. Like they don't do that often in the show, so I'm glad that episode was kind of dedicated to that. Really enjoyed it.
That was my number 3, and I was gonna add something, but then you mentioned the whole thing about the group dynamic. I was like, okay, cool, I'll talk about the group dynamic, but he hasn't brought that one up, and I was like, oh god, of course that's his last thing but yeah, that's not my number 3.
It's much higher up for me as well, very high, for the same reasons. It's such a great episode. It's got all of the everything you've said already: the group dynamic, the action, the comedy, the fact that it's an early snapshot of Avatar, Team Avatar, but also just how much happens in it. If you look back and play the entire episode in your head and how many places they go and all the different scenes that take place, how that's only 20 minutes is beyond me. Because they do a lot in that episode.
They kind of cheat by just having Zuko show up when it's time to fight. They didn't establish him at all, but it
but
works.
You kind of remember him because of his previous episode.
Yeah. So it's effective, even though there's definitely
I find other episodes more emotionally stimulating, I guess, but that's pretty much the only reason. The book 2 is like just one like big huge it's great for me, pretty much. So I mean, like these are really splitting hairs when it comes to where I place these.
Absolutely. Number 7. My number 7 was Blind Bandit, so just one up from you in terms of number 8. All the same reasons. It's a great episode. It's a great single encapsulation of Toph and what the team is going to be moving forward. So yeah, very funny too.
Antoine, number 6.
Blind Bandit.
This is going to be the case of all the episodes, isn't it? It's going to be slightly one notch apart. Well, I guess for the same reasons, Antoine.
Mine was Library, like I said.
And mine is Bitter Work. This is where I placed that one for me.
That's higher up.
And that's where I'm at with 5. So I'll talk after you.
It's super strong episode. For me, it's just so much background dressing of managing to flesh out the ideas of the bending cultures, the way one can apply them, how they relate to the personalities of the characters. It's got great comedy. It's got one of the best moments in terms of a single scene between Iroh and Zuko. It ends strong, if a bit dramatic. Introduces the idea of Toph as a teacher to Aang, so it's super important, but also reinforces Katara as a teacher for Aang, because it's been a while since we've seen that. There's so much going on in this episode that I just love. It just basically just got beaten out by other things that I've enjoyed more personally, in terms of rewatch value. But yeah,
totally agree. But that's why it's higher for me, because I just love it so much.
And mine just went higher at 5. Because in particular because of the Iroh telling Zuko why the Avatar actually matters, not just being like, oh yeah, he just stops things from getting really bad, but no, it's like he really shows like the balance between the entire world and being this bridge between the spirit and physical realm, and why that all matters beyond just being like, I stop conflicts. There's more to everything than just that.
And he does it without actually saying that. He never at any point says the Avatar is here to do this. It's all just inference based on what he's discussing in relation to how it affects affects Zuko, and getting that personal reaction from Zuko as well when he actually starts caring is when that comes up. So it's such a really well done episode in terms of all of this setup for the background. Brilliantly done.
That was my 5. That was my 5.
What's your 5, Matt?
My number 5 is the desert, like I said, because I really, really like Heartbroken Aang. I really, really like his being separated from Appa and almost losing control. I really like how Katara brings him back from that, and it's just so emotionally resonant and just kind of unique. Doesn't happen really in the series that way because he's usually pretty in control or just kind of flighty and not very serious. But I just like how human he is, which is not, you don't get that. It's not to say that he's not always, but he's a kid. Yeah. He's kind of separated from reality just by virtue of being a goofy kid sometimes. And in that, he's nothing but a human.
It's rare you see him affected, especially in such a dramatic way. And that's why that one stands out, I think, just for that alone. But also, you said specifically the moment between him and Katara as well. That's one of my favorite moments of those two, just for how simple they played it.
Yeah. And also, she can get on my nerves every now and then when she's being the mom. But in that episode, the group needed the mom, and so she's very important and like linchpin for that one. So I appreciate her in that one more than I usually do. Strong episode for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. Not on my list, but I agree with every point. Just again, the emotional resonance for me wasn't there. For me, number 5 was Crossroads of Destiny. So yeah, super great episode. But for me, it's top heavy. Most of the really interesting stuff comes at the very tail end of the episode. The rest of it's still great and still enjoyable, but it's not really on par with what I remember from the rest of the episode. It's just the Katara and Zuko moment and the finale. So it couldn't really be placed higher based on everything else I love about the following episodes that are going to come up in a minute. It was just too.
What number are we on right now?
5.
That was Callan's 5. That Crossroads of Destiny is my number 2. Mostly on the back of the Zuko Katara stuff, but also the ending bit. But also the big choice. There's a huge weight that Zuko has to put on his shoulder. And I liked our discussion of it in that episode that we did of the dynamic of the fight scene, and then what Iroh and Azula were doing as being like the devil angel kind of situation.
Yeah.
What plays better for Zuko and why he made the decision he did. But yeah, number 2 for me.
It would be much higher. All
of that.
Oh, sorry, Matt.
Sorry. No, you can go ahead.
It would be much higher for me if it was based on just objective quality, because I think that the weight of that moment in terms of character arc, as we discussed in the previous episode, for Zuko, that decision, it's rare that you ever see something that powerful in a story for me. But in terms of overall episode enjoyment, it didn't resonate for me as much as in the other episodes. But yeah, completely agree. It's an amazing finale on the back of that alone.
It's a bit higher for me. It's my number 3 for the reasons you guys have mentioned. And I think, but I factor in rewatchability, and I lost count of how many times I've watched that episode. Like, especially when I was a kid. Like, and a lot of that, admittedly, is to do with the fight. I'm not gonna lie on that. But I just think it's such. It doesn't ride solely on that. There's all those, like you guys said, all those mini character beats that are so strong.
Yeah.
And so necessary for the strength of the show's arc overall. Like, it's so pivotal.
It's the Crossroads.
So that's my number 3. Yeah.
But
even though we're on number 4 right now.
Yeah.
Kicking it back over to Antoine.
Under 4, Guru, which we talked about like way back then, because I think you guys had it at 10 and 9 or something like that. Or no, I think
I didn't have it at all.
I didn't have it at all. No, you didn't have it at all. That's right.
Yeah. So you really loved that episode for the same reasons I kind of almost re-loved it.
Right. Yeah.
Spiritual side. What about you, Matt?
So number 4 for me was Lake Laogai, because just the character.
That was at the top of my.
Oh, is it really?
Are you going to make it on my list? It's not going to be a list. Yeah. No, not my number 1. It was on my the No Man's Land.
Oh, I didn't even make the list. Wow. Okay. Well, this episode for me is serious business. It's kill somebody. It's reunion of Aang and Appa. It's the confrontation between Iroh bringing like his ideals to Zuko's sort of troubled past and all this stuff. It's just to me one of the most interesting in terms of character advancement and character. It's not that it's important for plot progression as well, but it's really just about settling the dust and also kicking some more up, you know, with that kind of like lingers. I just think it's great storytelling, and I love it. And it's got good action, it's got okay comedy, but it's mostly serious, and I love it.
For me, if it was all Iroh Zuko, you know, it would have definitely been higher up. But for me, that's the moment that places it as high in my regard, as it does. But it couldn't really carry the entire episode. I still enjoy it and agree with everything you just said. Really solid.
I don't think it.
But to me, that was where my emotional resonance was, and it wasn't enough of the episode for it to count. That's why it was only just on the tip of the no man's land for me. But yeah, I love the episode. It's great. Number 4 for me, isn't it? Serpent's Pass. Serpent's Pass. Which I didn't expect to rate as highly as it did, but when I looked back and just thought, okay, how much do I love these episodes, and which would I watch the most? That rate's high. Similar reasons for The Chase, which is still higher than this, in terms of how much is happening. But also, on top of that, this is where I felt the most for Aang. I felt the clamp down on his emotions was the more resonant part of his loss of Appa for me. Not so much the rage that initially happens, which makes perfect sense, but just the fact that he's drawing on his air nomad culture and how against his own way of being that is. I found that really interesting and really powerful. And of course, I love the return of Suki. It's a great to have her back with the gang, even if it's for a short bit. I love the scene with her and Sokka. Everything about this episode. On top of that, you've got the amazing action and the fun and the adventure, and it's just a really cool single romp, I guess, for me.
I like it, but I never even considered putting it on my top 10. I knew that one was going to be a middling one for me.
Yeah, no, I didn't think it was going to be as high, but I knew it was going to make top 10 for sure. Yeah, so I love that episode.
Episode is that 3?
3, yes.
Episode 3,
what's your third one?
3, which was The Chase for me. We discussed that one.
Mine was Crossroads of Destiny.
Which we also...
Yep, and mine was Avatar State. Had too much in it for me to not put it this high. I didn't actually expect it until we reviewed it, actually. When we went back and discussed it at the start of this book, I was like, oh yeah, a lot more happens this episode than I remember happening in this single pocket. You know, everything mentioned before about the Avatar impressions we get, the return of Roku for a cool moment, the idea of what they're trying to pull off and the scale of it, and how it kind of shows off the Avatar State for the first time after the end of the finale of the first book.
Even the idea of like, yo, and you gotta do something, you gotta make some sort of plan. Like at least the general was like, hey man, like you're in Avatar State now, let's hurry up and like, you know, stop this war.
Yeah,
no one has really brought that up yet about like, let's do your job.
Exactly, it needed to be said. There was going to be the question of why doesn't he just go Avatar State and go and attack the Fire Lord? And that was going to be an issue if they didn't explain this. So it's just the law of the Avatar State and how it works, and also the risk it represents is really cool to highlight here. And on top of all of that, which is great enough by itself, you get the introduction of Azula and how that personally impacts Zuko's story, which I loved. It was all so well done.
I think it's timed well because there's no reason to fly to that conclusion for most people. Most people are not 100 years old, so they have no reference for what the Avatar can really do. Mostly the only people who have witnessed it have been people who are Fire Nation soldiers, because they've been on the receiving end of it. So they're not going to, be pushing for that. But it's because it's about the rumor of what he pulled off up there. It's like, okay, well, if you could just do that, let's go straight to the Fire Nation. So I like the timing of it there. And I also like why it's wrong. That is just, that's not the way to do it. Yeah. And that sequence with Katara being sort of drowned in the earth, like to force it, is really good.
Very strong first episode.
Number 2 then.
Number 2, I did Crossroads of Destiny.
Oh, okay.
I forgot it was that high. Sorry for you. What was yours?
Bitter work for me. Bitter work. Because everything that Antoine said, except just on steroids for me, apparently. I liked it a lot more. Like it was just, it's kind of in the way that what Puppet Master does for waterbending in terms of lore, I feel that Bitter work does for pretty much it's kind of like when fans get together and theorize about stuff, like in like a forum or together at like a con or whatever, like when you talk about, well, what if somebody had like a waterbender mentality and they were a firebender? It's a different thing to actually see it being put to use in a story. Like it's more I like that the creators are that invested in their own creation to think along those lines, I guess, because what I was talking about, to me, it's just it just makes the whole thing feel a lot more real and tangible. The whole cycle, the whole world feels a lot more fleshed out. You take that episode out, I think it would diminish a lot. Like
completely agree.
And I think things that we know to be true about the setting would only ever feel implied, if not so.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And the fact that it doesn't take that much time to establish that. I mean, obviously it's stretched over a number of scenes throughout the entire episode, but if you look at just screen time, how much they get across in a natural, character-driven way, that that is impactful just on the fact that it's affecting Zuko alone. But yeah, pun not intended. But the just the fact that it's focusing on him, and all of the extra stuff about the setting being expanded on the lore is on top of that. It's really artfully constructed episodes.
Yeah.
And one that you'd think they need the entire episode to do, but they still got all of this stuff with Toph and Aang alongside it.
Yeah, so, the Toph and Aang stuff is also great. I love the conflict there. And even he even has time to waste with Sokka stuck in a hole.
Yeah.
All that stuff done. So yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, they really cram a lot into these episodes in this season. What are we on? 2.
You're number 2.
Yeah, Zuko Alone, which I know is going to be your number 1.
Okay, I was okay because I was like, either they had him in the No Man or no one picked Zuko. I was like,
no one can have it in the No Man.
No one can have it.
This whole time I'm like, I have not heard Zuko Alone.
I'm pretty sure Zuko Alone is your 2's number 1, right?
Well, it has to be. You know that now.
Yeah. For me, well, duh. Yeah, of course.
I was waiting for the hat to drop. I was like, what is happening right now?
Yeah,
it's number 1.
Zuko Alone is number 2 for me because of how much I love the above episode. But which you already know which one it is. But everything they cram into this one, it's basically raised to number 2 based on the objective quality alone. So even if I didn't enjoy it, which I obviously do, it's too good to not have at the very tip of this list because everything it accomplishes just for set up, and not only set up for what we need to know in the future for the character, but also reinforcement of what we already know. This is kind of like the second blow of the hammer for Zuko after the storm. This is the kind of thing that drives home who this character is, and where he's going and why he's struggling with the direction he's taken. It's really powerfully kind of contained.
The storm is enough to just buy what he's after. This is more like, okay, you better turn good.
Exactly.
I'm now invested.
This is when I actively started liking Zuko, not just going like, I think I might like the guy. This is when I was like, oh no, this guy I can rock with this. Oh my god, I had a thought that just slipped my mind about Zuko Alone.
It's okay. It'll come back.
Keep talking.
I love his mother and like the relationship she has with him. I love the snapshot of little Azula still being kind of who she already is, but at the same time, there's a touch less of the edge, just a touch. I love the Fire Nation Palace or the Capital Palace or whatever. I just like that setting a lot, and it's just sort of like an interesting behind the scene look at. It answered a lot of questions without asking them in an obvious way. Why is Iroh like not the Fire Lord? Because he just looks older than like his brother. Like from, even though we only ever see him in silhouette, there's things like color to Ozai's hair. He's like in great shape and he's taller and just seems more younger. It's like what's the story there? This provides an answer. Okay, there was some kind of scheme like where he got subverted there. It talks about
and he didn't care to subvert it because of what already was on it. He just was that.
Yeah, it talks about their cousin Luten, who's dead now. The realities of war. It deals with like that sort of cycle repeating with the Earth family that's missing a child. It's just so good. I mean, it has nothing really to do almost with the fact that Zuko is my favorite character. It's
what made him your favorite character for a lot of people. It's what really drove home the storm's initial kind of raising in terms of what he is in your eyes, and also as well, despite being such a perfectly self-contained episode. In terms of the impact it has, it's got all of these threads, both from what we know before and after. And on top of that, pairs so nicely with the surrounding episodes, in terms of his journey that he's going through right now. It's not just his overall character arc, but his mini arc within that to set up the finale of this book. Everything that you're seeing is so nicely blended with what's already happened and is what is about to happen. It's not detracting from the episodes around it because it's too bombastic or too concisely focused. It's dipping into his past and present at the same time to counterbalance that. It's so well done. You don't want to make sorry you don't want to make the entire book kind of middle heavy with this, because it could have easily done that. It manages to make it feel like this is spread out among multiple episodes while still all being contained in one 20-minute block. So I've not seen it done in other shows quite the same way.
Yeah, the fact that you called it kind of like self-contained, it feels like it could have been like its own just mini story without any context. And it's pretty directly inspired by Westerns, which I don't like, but it's like the Western episode, and it's like my favorite thing. It's just so good.
It could even be its own season premiere if it was like a Zuko series or whatever. Like you could just start it. Who is this guy? What is this past that we're looking into? And like just continuing on and being like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't need to know much about what came before. You know, this would be a good introduction to the character. Obviously, it's massively enriched by what you know, and that's where it derives much of its strength from. But
even what comes up too, like you learn about the war through the Earth soldiers who were there, and you learn a little bit about his past. Like legit could be a starting point. Like if this was like a Zuko series.
Also, just random tidbit that came to mind right now, nothing really to do with the episode. The battlefield he's walking through on the ostrich horse at the very start is the same battlefield that Avatar 1 dies on.
Yeah, we mentioned that in the episode, I think.
Did you?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember
that. Pretty sure.
But
but you can tell because of those big Quen things. So yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't remember when I was mentioning that. Maybe even where I learned it. But that came up recently.
It was so long ago. Like the people that watch this will have no
exactly. It'll be a year ago. So if I was at the time not knowing that, guys, apologies. I've brought it up again now. Lesson learned. But yeah, it's just an amazing episode all the way around. But in terms of because that's you've said all your number 2, haven't you? So yeah, in terms
of my number 1,
why it didn't make the number 1 for me is the first episode, which again I already mentioned, is the chase. Whenever I look back on this book, this is the first episode that comes to mind because of how much I love the entirety of it. It baffles me how much they actually manage to cram into these 20 minutes because you go so many places. Yeah, there are a lot of time skips because that's part of the fact that the journey is the chase. But the drama between the different characters in the gang, the further development of Toph and her integration into the group, the kind of first time we're really seeing Azula represent a full threat to the team, while at the same time getting a nice balanced first time we're seeing Team Avatar used against her. Amazing action in like different team and combination dynamics. Really fun, really funny. Good use of every character involved, even though they were kind of they left Tylee and May in the background for the latter half.
They did a lot. They were stuck to trees. It was fair.
Yeah. They still had time to shine, in that little bit, and just everything about it. The drama with Toph, the development of how they did like a 3-stage act of her own little story from the episode. The Toph and Iroh scene. Iroh's further development and lamenting of Zuko's position. Zuko turning up, which was wild rushed, was still great after the fact. Everything about this episode, humor with Azula. We've said it all before. I love every single scene in this episode.
You know what? I'm wrong. They did fairly. Now I'm remembering it. They did make sense of how he was there. They hinted at it. He didn't just burst into the fight. He practically did.
Well, he followed them on the ostrich horse, didn't he?
He was following the followers. Yeah, he was tracking the tracker,
which made no sense because he wouldn't be able to keep up. But still funny.
That's why he was late. Didn't you notice how long?
Yeah, like still,
they sat there talking before he showed up. So it's fair. Yeah, they made no mistake.
And I guess Aang did double back as well. So
yeah, I love the episode. It's the only reason I don't put it as high as the other ones is pretty much, if you look at it on my list, it's about like emotional resonance for me, where I found it in other spots. But the chase is like great episode. Love it. I think it's a worthy pick.
Man, yeah. Okay, I'm seeing the battlefield now too.
It's really obvious. Yeah, it's really cool.
It's crazy because it's like, who is throwing them discs? You had some giant earthbenders.
Earthbender.
There was no earthbender apparently, right? Because maybe it was.
It might have been one.
It would have been spirits or something. Wasn't he
that's true.
Yeah. Because if we're going based on Cave of Two Lovers, earthbending was developed later on after him, like proper earthbending. I mean to say.
Right. That's true. Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, that's our list, guys. I guess of the episodes, we're pretty similar throughout. There are a few discrepancies, but most of us.
The bottom is usually where the discrepancies are.
Yeah, we align mostly. And again, we all love this book. I think we all agree this is the best of the 3 books for the first season, right? I mean,
I'm still book 3.
Oh, really? You still prefer book 3?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, cool. Because to me, there are a lot of moments in book 3 that I prefer over book 2, but for the overall work, I have to choose book 2 for the sheer amount of
overall
quality.
work. I would agree with that, but in terms of just me personally watching, like book 3 is definitely gonna be like my shit.
Completely get that.
Yeah. I would echo Callan, I guess, because I would still hold this up as the singular best season, like, or entry, like, that they've done. Is Empire Strikes Back. Okay, it's like it's that kind of thing. Although that's not quite the same because
not the same because Return of the Jedi does not match.
Yeah. But you know what I mean. It's just its objective quality, I think, is higher than the others. But because I always say this. There's stuff in book 3 that I like more.
That's what I was just saying. That there are moments in book 3 I prefer, but in terms of the overall quality,
book 3,
yeah, that's exactly it.
But if we're talking about like averaging, then yes, then I agree with the book 2 sentiment. But in terms of higher peaks, I have way more higher peaks.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I'm there with you.
Yeah.
I'm there with you because it's a question of mostly with book 3. It's just there's a few episodes that I think are like kind of not wasted time, but just like they don't really do anything for me. Not that many episodes, but like they that's what diminishes the overall package if you're looking at it like in that way, that objective sense. But the heights are way higher for me for the most part.
Agreed. I think less so much the individual episode quality for me with book 3, but it's just the direction they took. In terms, they obviously had a lot of scheduling issues at that point at the time in the production, but the way they were telling the story on an overall sense, I feel like they burnt a lot of time or used the time they did have weirdly when they could have really done more with the sections of episodes they were working with. Whereas book 2, it's a lot more of a steady, solid climb up in quality throughout the entire thing, building to this great climax with individual peaks on the way. Just to me, it played better as a complete piece. But completely agree. The best of 3, though. The best of 3 is just some of the best storytelling I've seen, period.
The midpoint of 3 and on is just great for me. I think the last one would be probably Nightmares and Daydreams. I'm kind of like, but then Puppet Master's right there. So yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
We'll be able to talk about it more when we get to book 3. But it's a phenomenal season.
The Avatar and the Fire Lord. I'm actually, you know what? I don't even know about me saying objectively.
But look at the first few episodes. Like, why do they use the time?
The first few were kind of a little bit.
They're kind of rough.
And bear in mind they're also coming after book 2's finale, so it's like a huge drop down in like, why are they doing this? That's what I mean by complete peace discussion. It's the finale season, so.
Episode 5 on, like the beach on, everything is fine. Yeah. Okay, we'll get to it.
But don't get me wrong, amazing season.
I'm with Callan on this one. I'm with you, Callan. I'm with you.
Yeah, it's. I'm looking forward to discussing it though, because again, so many great moments. That's some of the best I've ever seen in storytelling. Period, or in season 3. But yeah, that has been our discussion of book 2, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Let us know in the comment section down below anything you think we've missed or should have discussed in greater detail. I'm Rutty4, and I still don't have an outro.
And please don't do that because we don't read your comments for 2 years.
Yeah, we do. We just just late.
Thanks for watching.
Oh my god. That's what Adelaide. Peace, love. And remember, be water, my friends.
Goodbye.